But again, Steve Ballmer, he has been good for NBA business. That's their fucking real dilemma. Make no mistake about it, Silver is working overtime to not only get this situation handled, but he wants Ballmer involved in the league going forward. It's been good for business, and this is why we seen him kind of cozy up to Trump. And that's not by mistake, as right here we're going to tie this all in. There's a reason why Silver has been cozying up to Trump, because he's really the only person that can get this shit thrown out. As we all know, the NBA media, as well as the media at large, overall they tend to lean to the left, and they've been very shocked of Adam Silver's change of tune when it comes to Trump. Now check out Adam Silver right here before Game 2 of the NBA Finals, as he was asked by a media member, almost kind of bringing up Trump's presence as an inconvenience, and Silver does a complete 180, especially with the temperament he had for Trump back in 2016, and now he kind of welcomes him in to the NBA and just lets it be known that his presence isn't an inconvenience. Once again, check out the way the media member asked the question, because he sort of implies that Trump's presence is a complete inconvenience and it's not wanted. And Silver goes out of his way to throw that Uno card.
And then also, when you have a place that's as big as New York City, hasn't had a finals in so long, how painstaking has it been for the NBA to prepare for the crowds, the people partying outside watching the game, the crazed fans, maybe unique people deciding to attend the game? Like, how much preparation have you guys done on that regard, and is it still a work in progress?
Yeah, I just say I don't view that part of the job as painstaking. I think it's a really enjoyable part of the job. I happen to live, as I said, in New York City, and so I'm seeing it every day. And yes, viewing parties, things the Knicks are putting together, things that the league is helping with, but the great news, games are on broadcast television. Obviously, there's only so many tickets to these games. It's frustrating that more people can't get in the buildings and more people can't get the buildings at lower prices, but markets are markets.
Again, Adam Silver working overtime, boy, because Donald Trump is the only one that can save Steve Ballmer from getting subpoenaed by the feds in that Karr versus Sanberg case. Check out Silver once again during Game 3 talking about Trump. The tone is completely different, especially when you have a president, for the most part, for a lot of corporations in America in the last few years, it's been a I'll scratch your back, you scratch my back kind of atmosphere.
Let me ask you too, not only as if the Knicks and the Spurs were not enough, you have the president who's going to be in attendance tonight. What were the machinations and the behind the scenes there in terms of should he come to the game? Do they talk to you about does the president wants to come to the game? How does all of that work?
I found out because Jim Dolan invited him to the game, and he said yes, and he's welcome to be here. I think that what makes sports so special, especially when there's so much that divides people, is it's something that we have in common, and we should look for those things that we have in common and build off that. And I'll also say about President Trump, you know, I've been with the league for a long time. I ran NBA Entertainment years ago. He did an I Love Kids game spot with us. He was a fixture at NBA at Madison Square Garden. You guys remember, well, all of you, when you played here, not Draymond, but back in the old days, he had courtside seats. He was here all the time. He was at drafts, so he's a genuine Knicks fan. And so, yes, there's some inconvenience to the fans here, but one looking around this arena, it's packed. So people listen, they came early, they got through whatever extra security, which is necessary. So, as I said, I think we should be using sports to create more of a sense of community with people, not less.
That was one hell of a way for him to tap dance around that and just not acknowledge the elephant in the room. The Knicks fans overall waited over 50 years for this. Outside of their arena, whether they play there or not, has been turned up every single night. And for Trump to come through in their very first finals game in well over 20 plus years, it was inconvenient. But again, in that very same night, Adam Silver had to have his best pitch with Donald Trump, because what we all didn't know was they were waiting on the outcome of that Karr versus Sanberg case that would expose their wealthiest owner, Steve Ballmer, to possibly get subpoenaed by the feds. Now all the emails of the Clippers are exposed, the transactions that they make, some of the paper trails of Ballmer's outside entities. which Adam Silver doesn't even have the reach to kind of investigate. Those things will be exposed because they're looking for any communication he had with Sanberg. But listen to President Trump, because you already know, he knows what it is. This is a transaction for him. It's almost like Adam Silver has approached him like he's a genie trying to make a wish. But just listen to Trump as he kind of alludes to Silver's bending at the knee. And we know Trump does not forget his enemies. Everyone knows how the NBA had a different energy towards him back in 2016.
Commissioner Silver, he came over to pay his respects. As president, he came over. We talked a little bit about the NBA and about the game, and the game's changed. I said it's gotten rougher, which is a good thing, not a bad thing. It's gotten rougher. When you look at the way they guard people now, I don't remember them doing that 10 years ago. And he knows a lot about basketball, but it's good. It's good for the game.
Do you think the NBA has
it's a
turned
tougher
away
game
from the left-wing stuff that they were getting criticized for?
Well, it's a little left-wing. Yeah, I think so. It tends to be a little bit left-wing, but it's great entertainment. Great.
Hey, right there, even the reporter acknowledges the NBA was very left-wing, especially towards you back in 2016. Once again, Trump does not forget his enemies. But now a lot of them, including Disney, Apple, have all bent the knee. Even ESPN, when they tried to do that deal with the NFL, these entities were very nervous about just possibly being viewed as mini monopolies. So being buddy-buddy with Trump has been very beneficial for the very same companies that try to take a stand and brand themselves a certain way to get certain favoring with audiences. And I'm always saying throughout this show, in the business world, there's no such thing as woke. They play both sides. Whoever's the winner in politics and has the power is who they're going to side with. But going back to that case that's up Steve Ballmer's ass, he's trying to get it thrown out. It didn't work. You snitched on your boy Joe Sanberg. He not only cooperated with the feds as well as the NBA, but he still got 14 years in jail. And for a billionaire like Ballmer, who said, oh, I got conned, it's very hard for the viewing audience to sympathize for a billionaire, for the most part, who has always had his way. This whole cap circumvention in a way kind of shows us how these tech oligarchs operate behind the scenes in order to get things going in their business's favor. Ballmer has gone through unprecedented amounts of money just to get an NBA superstar in a sport that's really a team concept in order to win. So just imagine what he's doing for Microsoft behind the scenes. But again, going back to his relationship with Joe Sanberg, a man who's in his 50s now is about to do a 14-year bid. Ballmer has given statements in court going against him, saying that he's been conned. But Pablo Torre dug into the archives and found another nonprofit that Ballmer had funded, headed by Joe Sanberg, after Aspiration had completely fell apart. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
And so, what I went to go do was learn more about the Golden State Opportunity Foundation. But when I went to the Where We Started section of the Golden State Opportunity Foundation's website, this is what I saw.
Not found. Sorry, that page was not found.
Which was weird. It's weird, right? And so what I did was I went to the trusty old Internet Archive, a journalist's best friend.
The Wayback Machine.
The Wayback Machine. And this, Amin, is what a cached version of the page used to read as recently as November 2024.
Golden State Opportunity founder Joseph Sanberg grew up in circumstances familiar to many Californians. Raised by a single mom who struggled to make ends meet on her public school teacher salary, Joe's family lost their home to foreclosure after falling deeply into debt.
And it goes on. And it is a tremendous story.
In case anyone was wondering, maybe it's another Joseph Sanberg.
That's the picture on the page that was erased.
Folks, I had a whole thing. I was going to do a Southern lawyer accent.
I
was going to push back.
Now you've just dropped. We're just talking in our actual voices now.
Completely broken character.
None other than disgraced Aspiration co-founder Joe Sanberg is in fact the founder of the Golden State Opportunity Foundation. This is his charity. It's his baby. And it's a fact that is verified, by the way, by the organization's Form 990 IRS filings, which also list him as the longtime board chair. You can find references to Joe Sanberg's role in this organization all over his Wikipedia page, easily Googleable articles, interviews about his ambitions in democratic politics. And so the relevant question, I suppose, would be this. When did the Ballmer Group decide to give yet another seven-figure infusion of cash to an entity founded by Joe Sanberg? Is that the Ballmer Group announced this grant as part of a larger roundup of grants in December of 2024.
Once again, for those of you watching the visual version, I'll put a timeline of all the fuckery that Aspiration has been going through ever since 2022, including the fact that the Clippers, by the time it was a 23-24 season, terminated their deal with Aspiration. January 18, 2024, Bloomberg had did a probe under Aspiration, and then by the time it was July 18, 2024, Bloomberg already called them frauds. So for it to be December of 2024, yet another nonprofit headed by Joe Sanberg, and Steve Ballmer continues to give money to him, we all know that's his boy.
December 24 was a month after the last recorded mention of Joe Sanberg on the charity's website, which we showed you. It was a couple of months after the arrest of Joe Sanberg's co-conspirator, Ibrahim al-Husseini, by the FBI. It was almost a year after Bloomberg publicly broke the story of the government's investigation into Aspiration. It was more than a year after the Clippers claimed to end their partnership with Aspiration, and dozens of Aspiration employees had been interviewed by the federal government. In other words, well beyond the point when Steve Ballmer would have learned that he was humiliated and defrauded and victimized by Joe Sanberg, as he keeps on saying, Steve Ballmer's charity, the Ballmer Group, appears to have donated around December 2024, according to the public records of his own internal database, $1.875 million to that same fraudster for the first time.
Now remember, Steve Ballmer keeps saying, I got conned. It's almost in the same vein as when he first came into the NBA and he was like, Larry O.B. Both of those things is part of the same bullshit. He never gave a fuck about no Larry O.B. The truth is the Clippers actually allowed Ballmer to almost purchase half of downtown LA by USC. Not only he owns that arena that got built, he also was able to purchase the land directly from the state. So whether he's part of the NBA or not, he's going to be getting paid with that prime real estate.
Golden State Opportunity, what is it? 10th anniversary. There it is. 10th anniversary. They've been around for a long time, Pablo. A long time. They've been doing good work, right?
That's right.
And also the Ballmer Group, you said they've given out $400 million. He doesn't know. It's like loose change in his couch cushions. We give it something called the Golden State Foundation. Golden State Opportunity. Sounds great.
It's true. It's true that $1.875 million was approximately, doing the math here, worth 0.0014% of Steve Ballmer's estimated net worth at the time. And so, in fairness, we put this in front of the Clippers and the Ballmer Group and the Golden State Opportunity Foundation. I wanted to know what this $1.875 million was used for and why it was $1.875 million. Maybe, this foundation has done and continues to do good work, but the timing of this donation is something that, just to me, would defy, what's that phrase again about explanation?
Cannot rationally be explained.
That's right. As source number one from the finance department at Aspiration also points out.
Am I taking crazy pills? It's just inconceivable to me to be both hoodwinked and bamboozled, but yet continuously giving money to Joe Sanberg. I don't know how to make that make sense in my mind.
Well, I want to anticipate the possibility that Steve Ballmer really believed in the mission of the Golden State Opportunity Foundation, Joe Sanberg's baby, the thing that he was the head of. And so maybe there is an art versus the artist sort of distinction he's drawing.
No, it does not make any iota of sense to invest in 2021, contribute nearly $100 million in carbon offset pre-purchases, reinvest in 2022 or 2023 round, claim all of that to be lost in 2023, and then come back for more in 2024?
So right there, you're hearing from a source that used to work for Aspiration. Everything they just stated right there is exactly what could get exposed if the feds subpoena Steve Ballmer. The Karr versus Sanberg case is very important because it does open up that line that never existed before. These are boundaries that the NBA cannot even reach towards, even with that famous law firm that they're using. Again, Pablo Torre has put on a master class into dog walking Adam Silver and Steve Ballmer into a corner that they cannot fucking get out of. If the NBA comes down with a judgment a little bit too fast, their reputation could be stained forever.
And then come back for more in 2024 via charitable donation. Maybe Steve Ballmer's a secret masochist.
That is honestly one of the most persuasive theories that anyone has offered at this point in the reporting. Yeah, Steve Ballmer's kink is being robbed.
Yeah. Rob me blind, daddy.
Hey, if Steve Ballmer continues fucking around, he gonna be saying that exact line in jail. Yo, next to his boy, Mr. Joe Sanberg. And again, we tied multiple layers to this whole fiasco. We're sort of getting an idea of how much an NBA star is truly worth to his franchise, especially in a league today where stars are taking pay cuts just to compete for a championship. Look at Wemby, Jalen Brunson. The list is going to keep on growing. At the same time, the league and the type of owners that are coming in, the money is growing for them. Also on the media side, why is there such light coverage with this whole situation? Pablo Torre is only a one-man show and he's digging deep into the crates. So fans are seeing for the first time, the coverage around the league is very compromised. Also, we're seeing why Adam Silver had a change of tone with Donald Trump, as he is the only person that can stop the feds from going through Steve Ballmer's personal emails, lines of communication with Joe Sanberg. And with that ruling that came down on June 30th, Ballmer is now exposed to this situation. So there's a lot of different things here at play. But last but not least, I thought it was very interesting to hear from two NBA insiders who normally get votes for MVP awards or just all NBA teams, and even they are confused about what's going on within their industry. The fact that Pablo Torre receives one of the highest awards for journalism when there's a case that's not necessarily wrapped up. They gave great insight to how this was very unusual for their industry. But yet, for two veteran NBA reporters, they did not discuss at any moment the outcome of the Karr versus Sanberg case, which completely flipped this whole fiasco upside down. Once again, we're living in very interesting times. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
It's also gotten messier. The Athletic just reported, was it yesterday, 2 days ago, that there could be a second no-show endorsement deal, that there are questions now about a secondary sort of endorsement company, sponsor, thank you. And now they're investigating that.
And the timing of them making the announcement of that investigation came just a few days later on July 14th. So July 30th, that Karr versus Sanberg ruling came down. Kawhi Leonard, July 6th, fired his agent. And then that trade between the Clippers and the Raptors got put on hold by July 9th. Very interesting, the league happened to throw a nice distraction saying that, oh, we're investigating a possible second quote-unquote secret deal with Kawhi.
Are we in a position where there's so much pressure to wrap up this investigation that there's going to be a major stone left unturned? Where am I in terms of where we are now? I am shocked it has taken this long. I understand that lawyers do a lot of lawyering and there's a lot of, T's to cross and I's to dot, but I'm sorry. I don't know why, especially for the amount of money I can only imagine the league is spending on this investigation, why this hasn't been someone's everyday. And there are enough lawyers at this law firm that you could have put 1,000 of them on this, right?
And there's also enough quote-unquote NBA journalists out there that should know the reason why she's asking this question right here is because of the outcome of the Karr versus Sanberg case that came down on June 30th. Once again, this whole fiasco exposes a lot of different things, including the fact that NBA media right now is very compromised. Matter of fact, the details of their gambling deals are even more concerning, as they make a lifetime commission off their audience losing.
There are enough lawyers at this law firm that you could have put 1,000 of them on this, right? And had this done in half the time. If they had 500 people on this, if they had 100 people on this, whatever it is, you could double it and have it done in half the time, or et cetera, et cetera. I don't know why it was allowed to take this long. I certainly would have pressed for it to
I don't
be
think they
happening
anticipated
quicker.
it taking this long. I think they thought maybe 6 months before
Someone's
the
in
end of the
charge.
season. Right, but what do you think of Adam's point that, like, he said, I can tell him to stop at any time.
Sure, but that we might be getting to that point. He says it's got to be done. I don't know when the calendar turns on when this trade would have to be decided, or when they feel like they would have to make this decision, but it's coming. And if it's coming, that means that possibly there's a whole new wrinkle of this investigation that could be pretty significant, that might just not even get investigated. It's already embarrassing to me that a Pulitzer Prize has been awarded for a media investigation into this, and the official investigation still hasn't even wrapped up. It's not that the media investigation happened and the official one hasn't. It's we've already gotten to the point where a Pulitzer has been awarded into that first investigation, meaning that it was deemed journalistically sound enough by some of the greatest experts in the history of journalism.
Sheesh. We're getting some insights right here of how unusual it was for Pablo Torre to get that award, and the investigation is still ongoing. That also shows you how compromised their industry has become. For the most part, the business model now is to link up with a gambling company and have an on-air personality like Stephen A. Smith just spit out a bunch of hot takes, hiding behind anonymous sources, and when shit gets too hot, they try to hide behind these quote-unquote ethics. Oh, I'm a journalist. Get the fuck out of here.
We've already gotten to the point where a Pulitzer has been awarded into that first investigation, meaning that it was deemed journalistically sound enough by some of the greatest experts in the history of journalism that it was at least a journalistically sound investigation into problems and potential issues here, and that the league still hasn't been able to come back and say there's a there or not. I think that is problematic, and I don't think it's anyone's, I'm not saying it's Adam Silver's fault. It's not his fault. He's got a big job with a lot of things to do. But I don't know, am I hiring, no offense to the fine people of Wachtell, but I know they are the go-to investigative firm for both the NFL and the NBA. The next time there's an investigation, if I'm interviewing law firms, I might say, hey, buddy, how quickly are we going to get this done?
You know what? It wouldn't shock me if Wachtell ends up dropping the NBA as a client if they're put in a position where their reputation could be on the line. Once again, the league has it set up where Steve Ballmer is paying all the expenses for his own investigation, while at the same time there's other cases going on that could open things up for the feds to subpoena not only Steve Ballmer, but also the Clippers. So if they come to a conclusion too fast and give him a light slap on the ass and just a small fine and maybe a few draft picks, and the feds then open up the paperwork and show the audience, the viewing audience especially, that the credibility of the league as well as that law firm is in question, it's fucking over. You can't recover from that. But once again, as NBA voters, right here, Rachel Nichols, as well as Chris Mannix, they seem like they're not aware of some of the outside cases that are going on, because this shit is buried deep, and it's not by mistake.
I agree with
because
that.
I want it done right, but it can get done right at different speeds.
I think he has no choice now.
Mr. Wachtell might have some explaining to do.
I think Adam's got no choice now but to let this thing play out, because he has got to get the full, unvarnished, uninterrupted report at this point. Because if the result of this report is that he is going to, well, if the result though of this report is that he is going to submit the Clippers to some kind of serious punishment, he knows that there is probably going to be a fight coming from the 13th richest man in the world. A guy that has the best lawyers on the planet. A guy that is going to be armed to the teeth and potentially ready to fight for years, to drag the NBA into a multi-million, multi-billion perhaps lawsuit. Like that, whatever percentage you want to put on that happening, that at least has the potential of happening.
Now, when you look at the situation with Pablo Torre, he's one independent guy. So if a lot of the accusations and just paperwork trail that he has left was false, you would think Ballmer would completely not only bury his career, but he would completely destroy his whole media existence. The fact that he has not done that yet is because he already understands that if he sues Pablo, he could open himself up to get subpoenaed. And once again, all the paperwork from the Clippers, the emails, all the trails have to come to light. And they do not want that, because more than likely, we might see some shit that they never wanted us to see, allegedly. Let's just leave it at that.
At this point, as frustrated as the NBA is, as frustrated as clearly Adam is, frustrated as people are to be dealing with this still after almost a year of this initial reporting coming out, I don't think he has a choice anymore. He has to follow this thing all the way through.
The point you make about Steve Ballmer has always and will continue to be true. Regardless of what shows up in that report, Steve Ballmer has the legal right to take them to court over it. And he could, with all of his money and lawyers and everything else, drag this out for years, regardless of what's in that report. That report could show photos of him handing Kawhi hamburglar style, like a grab a thing of money, a brown sack with a big dollar sign on it, and he could still take them to court for years. So that is something that the league is balancing. There's an implied power here that Ballmer has, that the league is going to be balancing. There's certainly talk of, we see sports leagues do this all the time, they try to end around that reality by saying, we are basically going to enter into a plea bargain with one of our own owners and say, we have met, we have talked about the evidence in front of us, we have agreed together that this is the correct punishment, and therefore there is not going to be a challenge, there is not going to be a thing. The Players Association does this too, right?
Now, all the stuff right here Rachel Nichols is talking about sounds fine and dandy. But that ruling on June 30th with the Karr versus Sanberg case has fucked it up. They cannot do that anymore because now the door has been opened for the feds, government, state, whoever to subpoena Ballmer and the Clippers. Adam Silver's trump card to avoid all this so they can get to a point where they can do the same things she was just referring to is to get that situation handled. And that's what Steve Ballmer since November 2025 trying to get that case thrown out. Who knows? Donald Trump might be the only one that could come to the rescue.
Right? They talk and we're not going to challenge it because there has seemed to have been a backroom conversation.
Coming to that,
I see that being the more likely scenario of how this ends. The question is, how much power do both? That's a negotiation.
Yeah.
And how much power do both sides have going into that negotiation? The league's power, the other 29, currently at 29 other owners' power, is what's in that report. But Ballmer's power is still going to be that he has all of this real life world financial and political and legal power. And that's going to be part of this. And I think the fact that the longer this has gone on, the Athletic report, and I have no reason to believe it's not true, if there really is enough evidence of a secondary possible end around, whether it actually happened or not, it's got to be investigated out. And if it's taken 10 months for the first one to be investigated out, how are you telling me that the second one is going to be thoroughly enough done, that we're also going to be done
investigated right now? Like,
it
we don't
might
know
be.
What they're doing there. They might have already pulled on that thread a little bit.
You are potentially, the longer it goes on, the more you are opening up to accusations from all sides of this got dragged out to give the Clippers a break. This got dragged out, but then hurried up at the end and wasn't completely, the Clippers got a break that way because it wasn't thoroughly investigated out.
Once again, we're casually listening to two NBA media veterans right here. They have a lot of sway within the league, who gets awards. They have a lot of relationships, but yet it's amazing how they're completely clueless about the cases that are around this whole Aspiration and Kawhi situation. The NBA, as well as that law firm, whatever ruling they're about to come down on, has to take a pause. Because if Steve Ballmer gets subpoenaed, the reach not only into Ballmer's emails and other entities and just lines of communication is going to far reach of what the NBA and that law firm could ever see. Reputations are on the line.
The Raptors got screwed, the Raptors didn't get screwed. I don't know how they can penalize Kawhi Leonard without getting into an actual legal fight with the Players Association. Because if you sit there and say, We are getting into the endorsement contracts of you players, an area which until this point we have had no jurisdiction. You are going to have a fight on your hands because that is where their real money comes from.
Once again, that ruling on June 30th has allowed that jurisdiction to happen outside of the NBA. And they do not want that paper trail to be seen. And from what Pablo Torre has shown so far, there's a lot of emails linking the two. But because the NBA only has a jurisdiction to reach in and find out what happened within that Clipper building, they can't necessarily dig into Ballmer's other entities.
And I can't imagine that that's not going to be a legal fight there. So there is a lot that has to be litigated and balanced here. And it's not just when the report comes back. Then Adam Silver has got to figure out what his decision is. There's supposed to be an arbitration process, I believe, written into these rules.
This is why I find it hard to believe that unless there is some kind of agreement between all parties, which I think would be best case scenario for the
that is,
NBA.
I'm sure, what everybody wants. That is typically what a sports
where
league
it's like
wants.
the Clippers can find some way to save face where Ballmer doesn't get suspended, somebody gets axed, they lose a draft pick, they can say,
This happened
we
without
didn't
his
know, but you
knowledge."
know what, in the interest of moving forward,
Right, this happened within the organization, without my knowledge, we're
Right.
going to whatever, X, Y, and Z.
plausible deniability
Yeah.
from the Clippers. If that happens, it's best case scenario. But the Clippers, in all their public statements, they seem very dug in that
They
they're
are.
not going to accept any responsibility for anything
They
that
didn't do
may or
anything
may not
wrong.
have happened with all this. And I asked this of Adam, Adam, how can you get a report? Let's say you get the report next week.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a big report.
Yeah.
That is going to be
you
multi-volumed,
made a great point
thousands
there.
of pages. You are not going to be able to digest that in a couple of days.
Yeah.
And then once you digest it, then you're going to come to the conclusion of whether or not you're going to penalize. If you do penalize, how severe are you going to, this feels like something. The next Board of Governors meeting, I think, is in January or September. This feels like something that could still be unresolved in September.
Oh, it's going to be unresolved in September. Oh, yeah, it's going to be unresolved. And if Silver gets more buddy-buddy with Trump and gets his way, hell, it could be resolved.
It really feels that
But
way.
when would again, Mr. League machinations, which I know nothing about, when would this Kawhi Leonard deal or not deal have to be?
I don't think it has to be finalized at any point.
Well, it does. Obviously, they could just say, okay, we're not doing this, we're going home.
Well, they could say they're going home, but I think they can always...
For it to be salvaged, when would it have to be salvaged by?
Well, I don't think... it hasn't really been...
There's no...
Yeah, there's no date
could happen
there.
in
They've
November?
agreed to the terms of this deal.
It could
They haven't
happen in December?
It could happen anytime. Yeah,
Okay.
they could do
Got
it. Now, if Kawhi winds up getting punished with a suspension, obviously the Raptors will say we're going to revisit some of this and let's maybe tinker with the deal a little bit.
I don't understand how this contract that they're trading right now could be null and void, because it's not even the contract we're talking about. Isn't it 2 contracts ago?
It's 2 contracts ago, yeah.
So, I am a little bit confused.
Is it? Yeah.
We're all confused because that trade might have been a smokescreen to kind of deviate the media as well as the NBA audience from that ruling on June 30th. And the fact that Kawhi Leonard on June 6th fired his uncle and agent. It's a lot of things going on. June 14th, the league throws in another monkey wrench. Oh, we're investigating possible second endorsement deal. But at the end of the day, that ruling on June 30th exposed Steve Ballmer as well as the Clippers, aka the NBA, into their lines of communications through emails, text messages, anything that goes on in that building to the feds. And that's what Adam Silver, Steve Ballmer, and that law firm that they're using do not want. But hey, we'll see. These are definitely interesting times. And if I was an NBA superstar on a team, I'll be reevaluating taking that pay cut, because low key, Steve Ballmer showing the true worth of an NBA superstar to a team. You could check out in my previous segments. I'll link in the description below, but we've gone over and counted well over $400 million Steve Ballmer has spent in order to keep up this whole Aspiration facade. And most of that was the money outside of paying Kawhi. Again, interesting times that we're living in right now.